All right, it is now time for our weekly breakdown of the college football playoff rankings. This is the third edition of the college football rankings. This coming in week number 12. As usual, we'll start from the bottom to the top, 25 through 20, 19 through 15, 14 through 10, 9 through 5, and then, of course, 4 through 1. So coming in at 25th, Dylan says if you're 25th, you're not ranked, which I agree with this statement today. 25th in the land is Mississippi State, coming in at 6-4.
Hail State.
Yeah, that was really surprising to me. 24th ranked Houston, coming in at 9-1. 23rd ranked in the land is going to be Utah, 7-3. UTSA coming in at 22, 10-0. 21 Arkansas, 7-3. And at number 20, we have the North Carolina State Wolfpack at 7-3. Thoughts on 25 through 20, Dylan?
Mississippi State at 25. I love that. Give them some shine. I picked them in the upset. Hail State, baby. Sit down, Bo Nix. You know how I felt about that. So Hail State all day. I like to see them in there. Even at 6-4, the record's not great. But, hey, Purdue's upset some people, and they found their way in the top 10 at some point. So Mississippi State, I think, is a good spot for them. UTSA is really controversial there, obviously undefeated. I think they deserve to be ranked in this area. I had a buddy come at me with legit facts, and he knew his holes in his argument and still came at me, battling the whole Cincinnati UTSA argument. And it wasn't a bad argument on his side with the crap he was throwing out. But what I'm saying is they can't be in that same conversation. They're not playing anybody. And I mean, they still deserve to be ranked in the 25 to 20 area. Utah, this is going to be a big game for them this week, going up against Oregon. And Houston, I think, sits well as well. So I don't think they screwed this up too much, and I love Mississippi State at 25.
Logan?
Yeah, I don't have a problem. It kind of, as it's been a couple weeks now, the committee seems to, have built that consistency and what they, are evaluating and taking into perspective. So, yeah, there's no problem for 20 through 25.
JR?
I'm going to disagree with Dylan and Logan. I'm not a big fan of Mississippi State being there at 25. They have 4 losses. They're one loss away from being a 500 team. I think there's somebody who can be a little bit more deserving of that ranking. The SEC, you can tell that they're just getting all of the love from the committee and ESPN, because I can make a lot of arguments for a lot of SEC teams that don't have any business being where they are. And Mississippi State, I'm going to put them in that category.
I agree with JR here. Mississippi State truly has no business being at number 25. I mean, you have a two-loss SMU team who lost on a kickoff return to Houston, who's 24th in the land. It is a terrible game against Memphis. They're an 8-2 squad. You have an Arizona State team who's 7-3. You have a Kentucky team who is not ranked despite being 7-3. Losses to who they lose to? Georgia. They lost to Georgia. I know that. They lost. Who else did they lose to, guys?
They had a bad loss.
They did have a bad loss. I can't remember who it was, too.
But anyway, while you continue.
Yeah, but anyway, I think Mississippi State has no right being at number 25.
But see, first of all, we're talking about the 25th spot. But to go counter you guys, I'm looking at the schedule right now. Mississippi State lost to Memphis, LSU, Alabama, and Arkansas. Arkansas by 3, LSU by 3, Memphis by 2. So there's 3 games, less than 6 points from winning those 3 games, and then got beat by 40 to Alabama. And then you bring up teams like Houston. Who has Houston lost to?
Yeah.
Correct.
But, I mean, these SEC teams deserve to get respect because they're the best. They have the best teams in the country, the best top talent, and they're playing each other every week. That's why I don't mind it. But again,
I don't know. I don't know about that. Florida struggling with Samford. I'm not so sure about that. There's a coach in the past who said you are what your record says you are, and you're 6-4. You're one win over 500.
But if you throw a team like Florida, Mississippi State, Texas A&M in the Big Ten, they're top tier. They're a top tier Big Ten team.
I don't know about that. Texas A&M's got 3 losses. They beat Colorado by a touchdown. Colorado's awful.
I think Texas A&M beats Michigan. I would think Michigan State would struggle with Texas A&M. All those middle SEC teams you can throw in there, I think either competes with the top 3, Ohio State, Michigan State, or they all 3 of them.
If my aunt had balls, she'd be my uncle.
I like that.
Wow. All right.
He would
Well,
indeed be your uncle.
wow, fellas, this is only 25 through 20. Wow. I can only imagine.
Slice it up.
Wow.
You're on fire like your hair.
Michigan still sucks.
What did you just say, Dylan?
I said we're on fire like your hair.
That's a good one. I've never heard that one before. I've heard the word fire. I'm not going to say it, but I've heard the word fire when referencing me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, 19th
You're
in the
fired.
land. This is really locking. This is really shocking. Wow, you got me. San Diego State coming in at 19th, 9-1 in the 9-1. That's really shocking to me. 18th we have Pittsburgh 8-2. Number 17 we have Iowa 8-2. 16 we have Texas A&M coming in at 7-3, and 15th Wisconsin at 7-3, which is Notre Dame's biggest win. Dylan, thoughts 19 through 15?
I do not have a problem with it. I think Wisconsin's been playing better football as of late, so that gives them the conversation of being there at 15. They've definitely been a team that's been better in the second half of the season. And looking at the rest of them, Pittsburgh, they got Pickett. They've been winning some games. San Diego State, I like them at 19. 9-1, their record shows they're a pretty solid football team. Iowa, man, Iowa's weird. They're 8-2, like they were up there at 3. I don't know how I feel about them at 17. Texas A&M, I believe, is right there. So I think the committee got it right in this area.
Logan?
I think everything's right besides Iowa. I'd like to see Iowa, maybe like a Houston go in front, or not a Mississippi State, obviously with the 4 losses. Mississippi State's not going to move up any in the top within less than 20, or more than 20. But yeah, everything else is good. Iowa, I mean, I just can't get over that game on Purdue. I watched that game. That game was probably the worst game I've watched all year, besides the game.
Yeah, no doubt. JR?
Yeah, I'm okay with it. Everybody's slotted pretty much where they should be. San Diego State, nice win over Nevada. Nevada's not a bad team. Wisconsin playing really well. Let's hope they keep moving up, make us look a little bit better. But overall, 19 on up.
Right.
Pretty fair.
Iowa's only number 17 in the land because of Gary Barta. So when I say Iowa, I'm going to start referencing Iowa as Gary Barta because that must be his bid of the week, weekly on the show. All right, 14th through 10th, we have, and coming in at 14, we have BYU, the Mormons at 8-2. 13th ranked Oklahoma at 9-1. 12th is Ole Miss at 8-2. Number 11, we have Baylor 8-2, and cracking back in the top 10 is the Wake Forest Demon Deacons at 9-1. We'll start with JR this time on thoughts on 14 to 10.
Again, pretty fair. BYU, I think they're pretty strong at 14. I think they've got some pretty good quality wins. Oklahoma sitting at 13. A lot of people think that they have an opportunity to still work their way back into the top 4 with some of their opponents that they got coming up. Are you going to keep a one-loss pack Big 12 team out of the championship game? I'm not so sure about that. Their opponents coming up, they have some opportunity in front of them. Wake back in the top 10. I like their coach. I like their team, their defense, a little suspect. Some people think they can work their way back into it too. I don't see it, but the thing to look out here is a 2-loss Bama team going to keep an undefeated Cincinnati or even a 1-loss Big 12 team out. I think that's something that we're going to have to keep an eye on.
Yes. I think it will. I think if Alabama loses twice, it depends who they lose to. If Alabama is going to go and lose to Auburn, then no. If they lose to Georgia in the SEC championship, then yes, that's where it gets dicey.
And I think everybody is forgetting the fact that Georgia could lose to Bama in the championship game.
Right.
So, you could have Bama and Georgia still there, and then you got 2 spots left. So let's not write Bama off as, a loss to Georgia, because I'm not so sure that's going to happen, even though I got a lot of problems with Bama's schedule.
Bama beats Georgia, we're out. There's no chance Notre Dame gets
for
in.
sure.
Right. We know you have some issues with
them regardless.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I'm on board with you, Dylan, but
I mean, we're not blowing these teams out that give us any looks. We already lost to Cincinnati, who's staying ahead of us as long as if they lose, then we're definitely
look awful.
Yeah.
Awful.
All right. Dylan, thoughts on 14 through 10?
I'll start right at 14. And I just happen to think, if people watched our show and don't really know much about BYU, they might think that their team name is actually the Mormons. So kudos to you, Lando, for sticking the landing on that one. But, Oklahoma, that big loss, that drops them down, obviously 13. I think that's still keeps them in the conversation, like JR was saying, with the one loss, where if they do beat some of their formidable opponents coming up, or tough opponents coming up, then that'll be something where they could find their way to creep up a little bit more as they continue on.
Dylan, I'm going to interrupt you here. Iowa State's not a tough opponent. I'm sorry. They're not ranked. They're a bottom dweller in the Big 12. They have one tough opponent remaining on their schedule. That's Oklahoma State.
Well, then they got the Oklahoma State. That's the big one. But regardless, I think it's all right. Baylor at 8-2. I'm not a big Baylor guy. I've said it multiple times on this show. I don't believe in the Bears. I don't believe in the Chicago Bears. I don't believe in the Baylor Bears. I don't believe in any of them. So I'm not big on them. I do think the lane train at 12 makes a lot of sense to keep it cordial there. But yeah, I think Wake Forest sneaking back up into 10. I like that as well.
Hey, if you look at Iowa State, they're a 6-4 football team. They are a 6-4 football team. 2 pretty bad losses. I mean, they got beat to Texas Tech. Texas Tech. That's not a good football team. I'm sorry.
Mahomes went there. Alma mater's got to count.
Mahomes is. Logan, thoughts on 14 through 10?
I do have one issue, and this is kind of back to what JR was saying with the Big 12. Oklahoma losing one game, getting put out of the top 10. And if you look at those teams, in my opinion, you guys can disagree, Wake Forest, Baylor, Ole Miss is not better than Oklahoma, at least in my opinion. Obviously, they didn't play great, but that's, I think the committee showed what they think of the Big 12. Obviously, you still have Oklahoma State 9, and I think the only way the Big 12 were to get in if Oklahoma State wins out, wins the Big 12 championship. But I like Baylor at 11, though. That's the one I'm a fan of Baylor. Wake Forest, I have no idea why they're 10.
Right. That's fair. All right, here we go. 9 through 5 here really quickly. Oklahoma State coming in at number 9 in the land at 9-1. 8th ranked Notre Dame, 9-1. 7th ranked Michigan State, 9-1. 6th ranked Michigan, 9-1, despite Michigan State having that head-to-head win over Michigan. Okay. 5th ranked is Cincinnati at 10-0. We'll start this time with Logan. 9 through 5 thoughts.
I like Oklahoma State. Like I said, they do have a legitimate shot. I'm actually surprised that they're not in front of Notre Dame with the conference game in the Big 12. Because obviously with this Michigan State, the Michigan team shenanigans that they're pulling right now, it's all for ratings. So you would think when Oklahoma and Oklahoma State play, they would want Oklahoma State higher. But, the Michigan thing, everybody's making a big deal about it, about the two Michigan State jokes. But, I think it's all for ratings. I don't see that being those two winning out. And at the end of the day, if Michigan wins out, and they play Ohio State at the end, they're going to lose. So I'm not too worried about it. It'll be interesting. The one thing that scares me, whether Notre Dame gets in the playoff or not, is the Oklahoma State factor. If they do win out, they do find a way to beat Oklahoma. I would think that would be twice. They would have to.
Yes, it would have to be twice. We'll go with JR here. Thoughts 9 through 5.
Fair, and I'm going to agree with Logan. We're going to have to hold Oklahoma State off because there's a chance that they could leapfrog us sooner rather than later, depending on how they play. Our strength of schedule here on out is not the greatest, so we need a lot of help from our friends that we've already played. So kind of probably want the Big 12 to cannibalize each other. Everybody else, fine. The whole Michigan State argument, you guys know where I fall on that.
Right.
That was settled on the field. I don't understand Barta. He's throwing stats. Again, he's like a Democrat trying to sell his program. I don't get it. Michigan State beat Michigan. They should be ahead of them. Okay, they had a bad loss against Purdue. Okay, you can make that argument, but I'm sorry. They played each other. They won. They're ahead of them.
Right. I don't get it. They say Purdue or Michigan State had a bad loss against Purdue. Look, you can say that all you want. Michigan State and Michigan still played. And at the end of the day, that final score is still 38 to something. I think it was 37-31.
And something to bring up. Sorry not to interrupt you, but if Michigan State's behind Michigan State who lost to Purdue, Michigan who lost to Michigan State, Notre Dame right behind who beat Purdue, what's the logic right there?
Right.
That's one thing I'm not going to understand. It's all about the ratings right now.
Correct. No doubt about it. And Dylan, 9 through 5, I think we already hit where you wanted to go with ratings.
I got dumped on again for that opinion yesterday. With the ratings thing, they keep saying they made the Purdue argument with Michigan State and how they lost to Purdue, and that alone should do it. But I sit here and I look at it like you bring up the head-to-head again, and we'll stay right there on that topic and say it wasn't like they played early in the year where this happened. This was just a few weeks ago where we saw Michigan State was the better football team over the Michigan Wolverines. So it makes no sense to me with the same exact record. Sure, they dropped to Purdue, and that was earlier, or that was later in after the matchup. But still, it's a tough one for sure in that area. But I mean, it's so strange how this works. I like how Notre Dame is at. I think they are in the right spot at 8. I don't think they should be higher. I don't think they should be lower. But I really, really am concerned. I personally think Cincinnati will end up making the playoff. They got to win out. But they need help from Oregon. Oregon, if you want anyone to get in here, Oregon's got to find a way to drop either against Utah this week or somehow in the Pac-12 that just knocks out them from one of those logical spots that sets up whether we see another Georgia-Bama situation, where however that game turns out, where a 2-loss Bama and undefeated Cincinnati, whether Michigan beats Ohio State, it's going to be madness these next few weeks, and I'm excited for it.
I know this is college football in November, no doubt about it. All right, 4 through 1, there's no change from the last week. Coming in at number 4 is Ohio State, 9-1. They finally got it right. At the beginning of the year, I was looking at the first pick here, the first playoff rankings. They had Ohio State over Oregon. Oh, no, they didn't. My apologies. My bad. 3, Oregon coming in at 9-1. They finally got it right, though. 2, Alabama, 9-1. And number 1, Georgia is 10-0. I don't have any issues with the top 4 at all. Just give me a little head shake, head nod if you disagree, agree.
Agreed.
I don't think you can change anything.
All right, you really can. I mean, I like you all have mentioned in the past before, it's all going to work itself out. All these teams are going to play, except, Ohio State, Oregon. Georgia, Alabama is going to play. Ohio State's going to play Michigan State and Michigan. Oklahoma State's going to play Oklahoma. So, that is that for the weekly college football playoff breakdown. Thank you for tuning into those, by the way. We love talking the rankings and giving our